Welcome, everyone. We're starting the March 22nd Social Equity Committee meeting. Let's see. Roll call.
Councilmember Such,
Here.
Councilmember Garaventa,
Here.
Member Coleman,
Here.
Member Juez,
Here.
Member Morales appears to be absent, and Member Toon.
I see her, but she's muted.
So for the record, it appears that 5 of the 6 members are present.
And city clerk's report of agenda posting.
The agenda was posted on Friday, March 19th at 1 p.m.
And public comment. Do we do approval agenda? I ask this every time.
You don't have to.
Okay. The public may address the committee on any item of public interest, not otherwise on the agenda that is written in the jurisdiction that is within the jurisdiction of the city. No action may be taken. Matters to be addressed may be placed on a subsequent meeting agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes.
So at this time, if you have any public comment, please raise your hand using the raise your hand feature. And it doesn't appear that we have anybody on the phone, but in case anybody does, please raise your hand using the *9 feature. There is somebody with their hands raised, and that person is Megan Mills.
Thank you
Hello,
so
Megan.
much. Hi. Greetings, Social Equity Committee members, council members Such and Garaventa, and all other attendees today. I would like to ask that the Social Equity Committee consider the following statement and implications locally. This is a portion of a letter from Asian Americans Advancing Justice in Atlanta. Quote, a community-centered response to violence against Asian American communities. On March 16th, 8 people were killed at 3 different spas in North Georgia. 6 of the people killed were Asian American, and all but 1 were women. We are heartbroken by these acts of violence, which come at a time when the Asian American Pacific Islander community is already grappling with the trauma of increasing violence against Asian Americans nationwide, fueled by scapegoating around the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and the United States' long history of white supremacy and systemic racism, end quote. I read this today to bring attention to a national issue which impacts members of our community locally and all of us really. This tragedy has made many of us in the community who are committed to social justice wonder how Asian American Pacific Islander community members in Tuolumne County are doing. I would like the committee to consider making a statement of support to Asian American Pacific Islander community members locally and nationally, as well as consider a means of inquiring with local folks about how they are doing, given the sharp increase in anti-Asian American hate crimes, an increase of nearly 150% since the beginning of the pandemic, as reported by at least 4 independent news sources. It seems appropriate for the Social Equity Committee to make such a statement at the very least, and hopefully to welcome input and feedback from local Asian American Pacific Islander community members. I thank you.
Thanks, Megan.
At this time, Councilmember Such and Councilmember Garaventa, I do not see any additional public comment. Hold on. I'm sorry. At this time, I do not see any additional public comment.
Okay. So, can I see everyone that's up here? Okay. We're going to go to old business, the city value statement. Nikki, I'm going to let you start with this because this is your work.
Absolutely. Can you guys hear me okay?
Please be closer.
How about now?
Yeah.
Is that better? Okay.
Mercedes, can you hear Nikki okay?
Okay,
perfect.
awesome. So just to recap on the old business, when we were working on the value statements, we have already approved 2 city value statements. I'll just repeat those 2 so that we're on the same page. The first two value statements that we approved, the first is our city's social and racial diversity and our commitment to protection, safety, prosperity, and sense of belonging for all. And the second, we recognize the diverse groups of people who lived on this land before us and their continued contributions to our city's history. Our committee agreed that we should have a third value statement recognizing and honoring our two local Miwok tribes. And at the suggestion of Darren and the agreement of the rest of the committee, I reached out to both Councilwoman Andrea Reich from the Tuolumne Band of Miwok Indians, and then also Chairman Lloyd Matheson from the Chicken Ranch Band of Miwok Indians. It was important to us to include language in this value statement that was respectful of both of the tribes, and also wanted to get their input on the verbiage that we use to make sure that they were on board. I had a Zoom meeting with Chairman Matheson and Chairwoman Reich on March 3rd, and the conversation was actually quite lovely. We talked about things that were their intention and also ours on the Social Equity Committee. Chairwoman Reich shared with me that it's always their intention to be good neighbors, and wants to strengthen their relationship with the city because it just makes us stronger as a community. So the conversation was really beautiful. There were some other things we talked about too that I'll touch on in just a moment. But one of the things we did was to start talking about language that we could use as our third value statement. And what we came up with, the plan was that I would bring this statement back here to the committee and talk it over with us as a group. And then if there were changes made, I would like to also just ask Chairwoman Reich and Chairman Matheson before we present it to the council, if that's okay with you guys, just out of respect. So the statement that we drafted states, we value the Tuolumne and Chicken Ranch bands of Miwok Indians and respect their heritage, culture, and lasting impact in this community through the centuries. And so that lasting impact piece, just to sort of clarify that, for anyone that's been to local fundraisers or seen kind of the philanthropic side of the tribes, you know that they're very philanthropic in our community. I don't think there's ever been a fundraiser where I've been to that they haven't been major sponsors. And so we really wanted to touch on that they support so many organizations here. So would love to get your thoughts on that. This particular statement, both tribes have signed off on, and now it's open for discussion with us. We can talk about that now, Colette, or I can share the rest of the conversation, whatever you think.
I'll share the rest of the conversation.
Okay. The second piece that we spoke about that I didn't really know about until talking with Chairman Matheson, but he shared, in talking through this idea that we want to partner with both tribes more, and obviously with the language that we're using and putting in writing that we value them. They're wanting to see us show some of that as well. And Chairman Matheson had mentioned, some of you may know this, but I didn't, that there's actually a cultural site in downtown Sonora near the fairgrounds that they would be interested in working with our committee in the city on perhaps working on a little bit and honoring and memorializing in some way. At this moment, I think it sounded like maybe it's a little bit grown over, and they want to bring it back to life a little bit and make it a place where it can be really honored. And so I thought that might be a really, really cool thing for our committee to work in partnership with them on. And again, just a way for us to grow the relationship and show that we value them as well. So that was a second piece of the conversation. I'd love your guys' feedback. We did invite both of them here today, and I'm hoping that perhaps they'll join us at the workshop. But yeah, it was a very positive conversation, and I'm glad that Darren, you had that suggestion.
Nikki, the cultural site, is that city property or do you know who owns the property?
I don't know who owns the property. All I know is that it's within Sonora city limits and it's near the fairgrounds.
Okay,
Yeah, we would have to determine whether it's on the fairgrounds or within.
which is state
city,
property.
Which is state property, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm happy to get exact location and work on that a little more with him if that's the direction you guys want to take.
What size are we talking about?
We would have to agendize that before discussion.
Yeah.
Okay,
We have to actually agendize that topic before discussion, but
okay,
yeah.
awesome.
Would we agendize that with city council or?
No, here
This week,
first and
okay.
then, yeah. Sorry, Nikki.
No, no
Thank you
worries
for
at
the
all.
update, but yeah, to be able to take any action or even to discuss it, we would have to agendize it.
Absolutely.
I like that idea, though. Maybe,
I think we can't discuss it.
We can't discuss.
I know,
Yeah,
maybe we know agenda is soon.
Darren, we can't discuss it.
I like that idea to agendize that to discuss.
know.
Is that Brown Act, right, Darren?
So, hey, I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is, so whatever you guys wanna do, I got cold hard cash I'll put towards this.
Yeah. Okay, so the value statement, I mean, I don't see any need to change that personally, but
Yeah, the only concern I had was actually naming both bands as opposed to just naming Miwok as a in general, but it sounds like they preferred the naming of the individual bands. Is that correct?
I think so. Since they are our local bands, I think that would be appropriate, and I would say they agreed.
Did they
But
suggest that, Nikki, or did
What was
they
that, Marcy?
suggest? Did they suggest specifically that statement, or is something that we made?
This statement was, we kind of created just out of brainstorming on the phone. So we went into it. I took some of the language like through the centuries and the heritage and the culture. I took some of the language that we kind of developed as a committee from
Yeah.
the exercises before. And then actually Chairwoman Reich, when I invited her to the Zoom meeting, she actually went to their tribal council and I believe some of the elders as well, and let them know that we were doing this. And they had a brainstorm session as well to talk about ways that they try to be good neighbors and language that we might use in this statement. And so they came with language as well. And on our Zoom call, it was sort of just a big brainstorm session where we played with words and started piecing them together. And this is what we came up with on the Zoom.
Both of them have signed off saying that this is acceptable for
Yep.
what they chose.
Yes.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
good with it.
Yeah, because I remember that was something that, yeah, we came up with previously, just a little change. So I just want to make sure that is something that both groups agree with.
Yes, absolutely.
and mistake me, correct me if I'm mistaken, but correct me if I'm mistaken, but they also said if they couldn't be here, that, it was, we could just go with it.
Yes.
or-
They just asked that out of respect and to make sure that the language that was presented to council was in line with their wishes, that if we did change it in any way, that I would let them know before we presented it to council.
Yeah, I don't see any need to change anything, because if there is already a conversation and an agreement with them, I think that we should respect that.
Yes, I agree.
Oh, Nathan is here. I see him. I see him on Zoom.
That's right.
Hi, Nathan.
My apologies. It got here as soon as I could.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, any more discussion? Motion
No,
Public comment.
or, excuse me. public comment. Anyone wishing to speak?
There is,
Please raise your hand.
Tristan does have his hand raised at this point. Can you? go
I
ahead?
was trying to drop my hand when I saw that Nathan was here. I heard the word Indians repeatedly used, and I have a hard time with that. I hope we have more information regarding if there's a medicine spot in downtown, recognizing it, and well, recognizing it is a great virtue.
I can't respond, right?
No, but we can circle back.
Okay.
We could circle back.
Okay.
You also have a public comment from Margaret Willett. Go ahead, Margaret.
I just have a concern that the location of that site, if it's an important cultural site, be kept confidential. And I don't know how that works with the Brown Act and all that, but I hope that you take care when you discuss the site and the location to protect the location of the site.
I don't know. I have to look. I don't know if we can keep that.
What's that?
I don't know if we can keep that confidential if we're using public resources.
Well, I think if the tribe agrees to want to enhance that site, then it's up to the tribe.
Mhm.
They would be the one that disclosing that site. I wouldn't certainly not disclose it until that time.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's protocol with all the studies that you don't disclose a site like this unless it's okay to be disclosed. So, yeah, Margaret, we're not discussing the site location. You notice none of us really asked exactly where it was.
Mhm.
That would be up to the if the tribes want to enhance that location, that would be up to them to disclose it, I would assume.
And just a very general, broad statement, both in relation to the value statement or any work that we do with them in the future. I think that we as a committee, and perhaps we can talk more on this when it's agendized, but we're all in agreement that we will follow the tribe's lead on this and let them, we would never do anything disrespectful unless they were in agreement. And so for verbiage on this value statement that we will vote on, every word in it, they're okay with. And the Tuolumne and Chicken Ranch bands of Miwok Indians, that is the language that they use to recognize their tribe. And that is, has been approved by them to be in this statement.
I prefer to use their words than mine.
Any more public comment?
I don't see any public comment at this time.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Oh,
Oh, we're actually, my bad. I'll make a motion to approve the value statement. We doing them individually or all together?
Just the third one, since
Okay.
I think we already
We're
approved the
gonna-
first two.
I'll make a motion to include the value statement. We value the Tuolumne and Chicken Ranch bands of Miwok Indians and respect their heritage, culture, and lasting impact in this community throughout centuries.
second.
So Darren motioned, Jim second. All in favor?
So I'll do a roll call vote. So Councilmember Such,
Aye.
Councilmember Garaventa,
Aye.
Member Duez,
Aye.
Member Coleman,
Aye.
Member Toon,
Aye.
and Member Morales.
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Good work, Nikki.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity, guys.
Okay, new business. As I was sort of going over the outcomes that we have left to accomplish, it occurred to me that the committee should decide the order in which we tackle these. And when I first put them on here, I put them in the order that I wanted them tackled, but then I decided that was not appropriate. So these are the orders that they appear on this city council's recommendation. So any thoughts?
Yes, I have some thoughts. And I would like to go back to our purpose statement, which said, the purpose of the Social Equity Committee is to formalize the City of Sonora's active commitment to belonging, fairness, justice, and equity for all. The second part, to listen to diverse and marginalized voices, to provide a space for conversation, reflection, and understanding, to recognize and acknowledge implicit bias. And the last part, to explore systems and identify areas of opportunity to ensure they work on behalf of the common good for all. I'm going to stop there because if we look at the approved outcomes, almost all of them refer to systems. In order to address the systems, we really need to listen to diverse and marginalized voices, and we need to provide a safe space for conversation, reflection, and understanding to recognize and acknowledge implicit bias. So my point is that in order to review and possible update city policies on racial sensitivity and to review racial sensitivity training for city staff and city council, first, we need to know where we are in the city. So it seems like the last of the outcomes, community partner engagement, needs to come first. So we need to listen, we need to have conversations, we need to have a space for reflection, we need to understand and acknowledge implicit bias, and then is when we will be able to review policies and trainings, etc. So it is an excellent point that we will have the workshop next week. So after the workshop, we will have more information about what we need to do and how to provide the space for those conversations.
I'll go. Mercedes took the words right out of my mouth. I completely wholeheartedly agree with that approach. I want to make sure that our committee is solid and our community is very informed on what we're going to do and that we have their support and unity, both in this community and outside, before we jump into policy. And I think there is language and communication that we will work on next week that, as Mercedes said, is perfect timing for us to start moving in that direction.
Thank you, Nikki. And I have to say that we have been doing a lot of work on creating the purpose, having a direction, creating a vision, and being more solid in our values. And now it's time for us to listen.
I have a comment on that as well. I think it is very important to hear stories from people and hear stories from the community, but I think that is one type of gleaning knowledge. The other type is to look at data, because people's stories, that's subjective. It's important, but it's still subjective. I think we need to look at the data, and I don't know how we can find that out. There's various ways, but I would like to see what kind of crime records there are as far as involving hate crimes, race-related crimes, and so on and so forth in our county. That might be something to consider as we move forward.
I love what you said, Nathan. Yeah, because the
We can actually put-
combination.
Read data for city though.
We can
So,
ask,
but, I love what you said, because I think it will bring more clarity. I agree that storytelling is just one aspect, important aspect, but just one. And there is a lot of information. I do not go only to the crime data, but there are so much data, like school attendance, there are health outcomes. And so my point about acknowledging implicit bias is because we need to have that lens that equity provides to examine that data. The data per se doesn't say much, depends on what we want to find. So I agree with you, Nathan. Thank you for saying that. So yes, different assessment, different data and conversations, looking at what happened in the city, etc. And, we have almost every time, we have people from the community, and people from the community are bringing up their thoughts, what they see. So all that is so important.
One thing we mentioned, I think you mentioned, Mercedes, or I'm not sure who did, but mentioned about stuff that's or maybe it was Nathan that mentioned statistics in the county. We're a city group, and we're kind of charged with the city part of it, and that's why I've always maintained that this group would be a better would be better suited, being a larger, more inclusive, more not be tied by the city. Be a group that is countywide, that can actually has the gravitas, possibly be led by some sort of a local nonprofit, and then have city and a county representative. And that way, then you could have access to not just the city statistics, but also the county statistics, school statistics, all of that.
we don't run into the restraints too.
Right, because we're kind of hamstrung in a way by only being able to truly deal with. The county would just say no. Schools would just say no. It's not you don't have the jurisdiction.
Jurisdiction over them. No.
I wholeheartedly agree with all of what you're saying. I just think that it's time for basically this group to be that larger group.
I do have a question. I hear you totally. To have a bigger reach would be more beneficial and more impactful for certain. Specifically talking about data, city data, access to not just crime records, but things like employment records and data from kind of across the board. Not confidential personnel records, I want to make that clear, but sort of city data. Would we still have the ability to look at that data if we were not a city committee?
If we were a group, you mean, could we?
If
ask
we
the city to
were
supply that?
not,
Yeah, so
do you know what I mean?
yeah, so do you mind, Colette, if I just answer? Yeah,
Yeah.
so as
Public.
any member of the public can ask for any type of public information through
Yeah.
the California Public Records Act request. You can ask for that information. And
Yeah.
if we are looking at that information, we would have to then ask those other agencies through a Public Records Act request for their information. Obviously, we're the city, so we're not gonna we're not gonna claim ourselves, and we would just hand it over, but, you know, from any other agency, schools, county, all of that, we would have to go through a formal Public Records Act request process, which is a minimum of 45 days. And then that's, you know, it depends on how they're collecting data. So, but
Yeah.
yes, any member of the public has the ability to ask for that information.
Right.
Mhm.
And I just like to step back for a moment to what Jim said about the committee, that it would have more access. But I also think that because these kind of initiatives haven't been easy in Tuolumne County, it is an incredible effort of the Sonora City to have created this committee.
Mhm.
And I would say one step at a time. So here is where we are right now. And we are building something. Sometimes when initiatives are taken out of the nest so quickly, it doesn't work. So it seems like we are moving slowly but sturdy, and one step at a time. So if we need to focus only on the city in this moment, that is perfectly okay. We have Sonora High School, we have Sonora Elementary,
But
we
they're
have
district, but
these-
Mercedes, those are school districts that are not under the city of Sonora. They're.
Oh,
they're
yeah.
legal
I was
entities.
talking about the
Yeah. But
area. Yeah. But you know, we can figure out where to start just with the city. But I think it's too early to think about doing something bigger. Let's things flow in the way that need to flow and develop step by step.
I got something I'd like to touch on. I'd like to actually take a poll with all our members here and see who would still show up if this wasn't a committee, if this actually moved to a group system.
I didn't understand what you said.
Would you still show up
But-
if this wasn't a organized
point of
committee?
order. We got to do a point of order.
Mhm.
Point of order, poll.
We can't because it's against what we're talking about right now. Sorry, Darren. But we're
Yeah.
looking at just prioritizing the agenda items.
Gotcha. I'll do it at the end then.
To pick up on prioritizing, I really agree with what Mercedes and Nathan both said, and that's that both listening to the community and listening to stories, and then also looking at data, those two things partnering together as our first priority start to paint a picture, right? So we can look at both of those things, and it will start to paint a picture of what marginalized people are dealing with in our community. And from there, it seems only fair that once we have that meat on the bone per se, then we start to jump in and look at policy and write resolution depending on what we find. It's almost impossible at this moment to say exactly what we need. I think we all have an idea of what that is because we're here and this matters to us. But from a place of necessity that we can really show and look at, I definitely agree that those two things need to be first. And that there is absolutely, for me, undoubtedly some oomph that that is behind this, with us being a city recognized committee in doing this work. And I'm really proud of Sonora for backing us on it and letting us do the work here. So looking at those kind of two things first, just my opinion, and I would love to hear everyone else's as well, but I think for me, the reason why the sort of the community engagement and ensuring that our message is being heard is more important than looking at data, because we need to be on the same page with one another. And we need to listen to each other and engage with our community, because strength in numbers. And I think the more that we can understand each other, it will only make our work richer and more impactful.
I think with some of this, right, don't put the cart before the horse. I think that Mercedes is right. We should take a look at this next Monday. Sorry, I got my stuff on there so I can go over notes. Data, can we ask the sheriff's department to provide that voluntarily without having to do a records request? Is that
There
a
are
possibility?
public
county.
site.
I know, but can we ask
Yeah.
them?
We can, yeah, we can.
So we could move that step up from city. I've been a big, huge knock on, we should be focusing on our community foremost. That's it. Because every other committee or county around, every other community around has different aspects of life. So, but I would like to include some of that county. I would like to see what the disparities are from them. If we could ask them nicely, hey, come in here and maybe actual, not paperwork, come and give a little, hey, this is kind of what we have. You know,
Well,
when this,
I think we need to know what we need to ask for too.
right. I mean, that's obviously something someone would word very nicely in a nice email versus, hey, come in and spend
Give
5
us all
minutes
your
talking.
data.
But marginalized voices. This is one that's not going to be a good topic. I see the same 13 people every single week. I don't see the massive differences in people. I see there's a little bit, but I don't see the masses. I don't see more than a huge amount of number participating in this, because I got to be honest, when you guys sit as the public and people have their hands raised the entire time, they'll either lose train of thought or they just stop talking about it. And group setting, I think that everyone has a better voice. We get a difference of opinions. We get that. We're supposed to have banter. We're supposed to have talking. We're supposed to have all that, whether it's positive, negative, pisses people off or doesn't, we should always have a conversation. There should always be. We talked about this being difficult conversations. We still should have those. These same 13 people show up every single day and give their opinion, but we're not getting any others. How do we spur interest in getting more of the community involved in this? Or are we just going to take these 13 people and that's what we're going to base everything off every time they comment?
Just
very
one
honest
thing,
question.
Darren. We don't know if the 13 people, which I am very grateful for the 13 people that come to the meetings, and we don't know the groups these people work with. And I can assure you that they are here because they have as much interest as we do. And they are here, and if they are working with other groups in the community, I am sure that they share with their groups. And they are, it's part of the community.
Well, that's
No,
why
I'm
the
100% with you. Sorry, go ahead, Nathan.
I was going to say that's why the data is so important, because if what do we have 4,800 people in Sonora, and even if 13 people represent 10 people, that's still a small portion. So I'm not saying we don't listen to stories. Of course we do. We have to include the data.
Yeah. I think it's a two-step process, honestly.
Absolutely.
I think it's, you have a forum to gather from people that just want to come out and speak about their thing. And then you actually have the data that you have to see if you can find correlations or not, and go from there. So for me, it's a two-step process. Nikki, you were talking about how you wanted to start forward, and I was going to ask, is that what you mean? Is a forum or some sort of gathering meeting where people just vent? I mean, how does that take that place, where you get people that are not normally tuned into our meetings, but have something to say? What do you have an idea on that?
Well, I do know that just in, I feel like
in the era of COVID and Zoom too,
Yeah. This might be wishful thinking, but I have heard a lot of community interest in our workshop next week. That
Mhm.
that flyer has been pretty well
Mhm.
spread. And there are folks in the community who I plan on personally inviting, and some I already have. I really look at our workshop as almost sort of not a launch point, but definitely a point so that our community can kind of see some of the work we've been doing and also see what we're not doing and become engaged. And so if we can perhaps maybe even agendize for this for the first meeting after the workshop, we can continue to invite people to continue what we're doing, share their concern, share what their experiences, share what they would like for us to consider, share what they don't. I would also like the opportunity, I know Darren has mentioned this as well, there have been so many individuals that I've met with one-on-one since the beginning of this committee. I honestly made a promise to myself that I would focus on meeting with people who had concerns with this committee and didn't agree with the work or didn't understand it. And so I would like the opportunity to share some of those concerns and share views that are different than mine and share things that I've learned from these conversations. I think because they haven't been agendized, we probably are all, actually, I'm only going to speak for myself, but I'm bursting with information of things that people have shared on all levels, from all different backgrounds, in all forms of support or concern. And some that are hesitant to come onto Zoom and just want to give little nuggets of information. Some have even given me permission to share their name. So if we have a space for that and we agendize it and are intentional about it, I absolutely think that we could have space to hear from people and also share things that people have shared with us as committee members. That's what I was thinking and what I think I'm craving. Of course, I'm not the only one here.
So
I don't have a plan though.
While you were talking, I was thinking of something. What would you think of some sort of, and all the rest of you, of course, some sort of like call for, I've got it written down as call for issues, but just someone can do a little video, they can write a letter, whatever, and they just post it or not necessarily post it somewhere, but send it somewhere. Submit it. And just stories, just a list of stories, whether they do it in writing, whether they do it on video, whether they do it by audio, whatever, and just, get feedback that way. Because I think if we have some sort of Zoom session or forum, it might be a little intimidating for some folks.
Too finite on time too.
Yeah, exactly. And it's got to be scheduled for a certain time. This allows people to just
Sit at home
say,
and write emails.
hey, this is my issue.
And then Jim, and then we read them.
And
Well,
there are different ways to do that, Jim. I think that if it's a storytelling, probably Zoom would not be the best way to do it. People would not want to necessarily talk about confidential issues in a Zoom meeting. And there are so many avenues to do that. I like what you said, inviting people to write letters or some other things. But what I would suggest that we table this prioritizing until after the workshop, and that we do it again, and we also explore some considerations, like, for example, the time of the meeting. One of the reasons that only 13 people come to the meeting is because it is not a convenient time, one. Then 1 hour, usually, and because we were working on things we needed to do, 1 hour is not a lot of time to have conversations. I have heard that from the community. I have heard from the community also the thing about time and also the desire to participate. So perhaps we can talk more about this at the next meeting. And I see that we have only 10 minutes left, and I have seen hands up for like 20 minutes.
Can I just make a comment as staff, though, just from a staff perspective? So when we as staff, when we're looking at implementing policies, we have to look at some sort of document that guides that policy. And that document is a resolution. And so the resolution is the starting point of the policies that guide the implementation of the steps of all the different processes in which we then go forth with. And so from a staff perspective, the resolutions generally is a first part, because that's what the council comes, that's what this committee comes together, that's what the council comes together and says, this is the issue, this is the problem. Now, because this is the policy set, these are the different things when we talk about community partner engagement to ensure proper circulation of, you can't ensure what you think is proper racial and diversity sensitive material until the council has the opportunity to step that policy on through a resolution. And so from a staff perspective, it's very hard to implement when a policy has not been set yet by the committee or the council. So I just want to get the committees, let the committee know and the public know that it's generally that resolution is the first step, and then going forth in all the different types of implementation.
Okay.
Let me ask a question on
Thank you,
that
Mary
then.
Rose.
If we do, let's say, some brainstorming for the resolution, I'm pretty sure everyone here gets the outcome of racism is bad, period. So how it should go, though, we can put down framework and start to build off of that, and then anticipate some of the things that follow with those in mind.
So are you asking us, once the resolution is written?
Not completely written. Can we start the brainstorming process and have some words on paper that we can refer back to, keeping in mind the things that are coming in the future? Knowing the policies changes and they're looking at the policies, the trainings, what we do. Can we have that in mind with a unfulfilled resolution?
I mean, it depends. It's at the council's discretion, right? Because you're going to have council members that come back and say, but the council hasn't agreed to certain points, right? Without that implementation of the resolution.
Right.
And so when we look at rewriting any type of policies on racial sensitivity, that's definitely putting the cart before the horse.
Right.
Yeah, I think I think you're kind of mixing up resolutions with outcomes.
Yeah.
No, and that's what I'm trying
And
to understand is.
Resolution is the
Resolution is
policy.
kind of
Right,
like,
I
yeah,
got that.
The overarching idea. It's the high arching
it's what we're gonna
idea.
do, and then,
Completely understand that. My
Yeah.
thing is when you get further into information, like Mercedes says and Nathan says, and we start looking at the data portion and something changes, can we go back and change the resolution? See, that's
well, you just
what
have a
we're
new
talking-
resolution.
Yeah, you
Yeah, you
do.
could scrap it and do
But
that, yeah.
I mean, you always have a higher idea that allows you to get into the weeds of everything, right? And that's what the kind of the resolution sets. So
Right.
I just want to make sure that we're not putting the cart before the horse, because we don't want to be changing city policies without having a resolution that allows us to change
Right.
city policies.
Yes.
And I definitely think that would be a progression, the natural progression. I also think that in order to get the resolution approved, we sort of need to, in the philanthropy world, in my industry, it's called a case for need. So we need to sort of present that case for need and hear the stories and the data before the resolution, so that us as a committee is on board and our community is on board as well. Would that seem like a natural progression to you guys? Sort of community engagement, stories, data, resolution, policy?
Yeah.
Is that what we're?
Yeah, that was what I was proposing. Exactly. That we need
Yeah.
to listen, and in order to write the resolution, we need to have a foundation. We are having a first training. We will continue exploring, and then we will be ready to start, like you were saying there, and brainstorming about the resolution.
We're all speaking the same language, guys. It's happening.
Does that sound fun? Yeah.
So we do have public comment.
Yeah, we
Colette,
do.
unless you want to make a statement.
No, I would like to take public comment now.
Okay, so Megan Mills has a public comment.
Thanks
I
for
would like-
waiting, Megan.
Sure, I'd like to yield to someone who hasn't spoken yet and then speak if there's still time.
At this point, I don't see any other, oh, Pablo Lopez has his hand raised, excuse me. Go ahead, Pablo.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to voice my support for the idea of getting data, right, and stories. And I think a common theme that's often overlooked when looking at policy, especially policy that requires critical analysis, is this idea that, again, I think a focus should be on how power manifests in the community, right? Like we talk about racism oftentimes as this negative, like bad things that happen, right? I think a focus for the social equity committee should also be how power in itself manifests in the community, right? Like what kind of systems maintain power structures of oppression, right? In ethnic studies, that's a big concentration. So, moving forward with the training and moving forward with the stories and the data and stuff, I hope that maintains some focus.
Thanks, Pablo.
Megan also has her hand raised, so.
Megan?
Thank you. I would just like to express my support for the Social Equity Committee on the city, county, and community level. I think it's appropriate that it goes one thing at a time and that there are issues within all of those structures that should be looked at and collaborated upon. And then when talking about data, stories are data, that's qualitative data, and the numbers are quantitative data. They're both important. They both qualify as data. So I think I really support this, that the committee's talking about this, and I would like to encourage that forward motion, and also that the numbers don't always reflect the reality, especially given that marginalized communities often are hesitant to report for fear of retribution, particularly those who are undocumented. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Tristan also has his hand raised.
Tristan?
Yeah, like Megan said, I agree 100%. Thank you. I stand for Black Lives Matter on Sundays every week, been doing it for months, and I see something that other people don't see. And I appreciate your beginning to investigate that thing that I see that is rather ugly. It's among a small percentage of the population, but it's very ugly. Thank you.
Thanks, Tristan.
Claire?
Hi, thank you. My name is Claire Mills. I'm sorry for coming in late to the meeting. Earlier, I had a point of clarification, which I can handle in a different way than this, but I want to thank you all for the work that you're doing. And I have several professional colleagues that I've spoken with recently who are in and out of the community, who are women who have been marginalized and who have great fear about the current racism that we're seeing in the news and that we're experiencing. So your work is even more important now. I just really want to thank you and hope that I can find some small way to be supportive. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire.
At this time, Councilmember Such, I don't see any other hands raised.
Okay, so bring
I'd
it
like
back to
to
the group.
address a little bit there. So Tristan invited me out to go stand on that corner and go see what goes down there. And I don't support a lot of the same ideology he has, but holy crap, is that eye-opening to see the a-holes that drive downtown and mock him and flip him off and burn out and blow smoke. He has a First Amendment protected activity. It is shocking to me. Now, I don't agree with him. I just keep my mouth closed. That opposition is crazy. And I'll admit that It is absolutely nuts that people want to be such a-holes because they don't like the ideology he has. We don't have to agree on things. We all probably don't agree on a lot, but we do agree on something, I'm sure. The commonality that's out there is nuts. And anybody, even the people that are opposed to everything he does, go stand out there for 5 minutes on Sunday. Maybe don't stand with him if you don't like it, but go stand there and look how many a-holes there really are that burn out and do horrible things. People I know were driving by, and you better believe the first call I made was to be like, you need to chill out. But I understand what he's seeing. And it's crazy that our community has that. But again, people get mad and say things for a lot of different reasons. A different word almost came out there.
What time does he eat? What time does he go?
It's
He
on
normally eats in the
Sundays from
mornings.
12 to 2, if I'm not
12
mistaken.
to 2.
12 to 2 or 1 to 3. Well, he'd probably be better. I know it's Sundays, it's 2 hours.
Just go see it. It's definitely
It's
some
on the-
eye-opening experiences.
It's on the Memorial Hall.
Oh, he's on the park side last
Oh,
time
did he
I was
move to
there.
Clarkside?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if you want to ask,
Yeah,
can
he's
probably,
raising his hand.
he could probably tell you.
Go ahead, Tristan, you can respond to the question of the time that you're there.
Does he have to-
You're muted, Tristan.
Oh, he's muted.
You have to ask him to unmute.
Forgive me.
There you go.
Forgive me.
Very good.
We're scheduled from 12 till 2. I usually arrive about 11:30 and I usually stay till about 2:30 or so because it's very addictive. There are a lot of people there that say thank you. And if you ever stand on a corner and wave at people and they say thank you, you can see it's sort of addictive.
Thanks. Maybe I'll see you on Sunday.
It's just crazy to me that to
Thank
think
you.
all these people that fight for First Amendment activities and stand for the Constitution don't let him have his moment. That's wrong.
Okay, well,
I had one quick comment. I think we talked about at the next meeting, agendizing our chat about the cultural site. And then did we also want to agendize kind of building on this idea, Jim, of reaching out for stories and community submission? We would have to talk about that at a next meeting first, right, Mary Rose? And agendize it.
Yeah.
so we'll put that on the agenda to talk about.
Awesome.
And what was the first one?
The cultural site.
Cultural site.
The cultural.
Oh, the cultural site. Yeah.
Still would like to take a poll on who would come to this meeting or this group if it were not a committee. If it moved to a bigger group system, who out of us would still go?
Do we have, do
We
we?
have to agenda.
We have to agendas in.
No, it's not on the agenda.
If you're,
I have to say that I really like that we are providing items for the agenda. That is a really good practice.
Mhm.
mhm.
Well, I'll tell you straight out.
I was just gonna say.
I won't be here in 2 months, so
So you're out.
Oh, I see, Jim. So that is the reason you are proposing to move out the committee.
it's probably
I
not the
can't
worst kept, it's
believe
probably not the worst kept
that.
secret.
Oh no, Jim, I would have never expected that of you.
I like it. When I set my mind to something, I'm a committed person.
One final question, sorry. Are we here in person for the workshop next week?
As committee members, yes. we
Okay.
will-
Oh,
we will
okay.
be
And
there.
everyone else is on Zoom, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Did we figure out the
And
stuff with the phones?
probably
to do
I
with all-
I will not be able to be there in person. You know, one of my conflicts is that, as you know, I work full time. So, and usually Mondays are full of meetings for me. So
Okay.
sorry, I will be here.
And in giving people information about this workshop, would I be right in saying that it's interactive? Is that right?
There, well, it'll be as interactive as it can.
Okay,
Because it's a workshop, those rules, those Brown Act rules are lessened a little bit, but we will do.
Yeah,
as much as we can.
there's certain, there's certain rules.
It
okay,
doesn't have to be we talk and then the public talk. It doesn't have to be. that.
Yeah, it's
Right.
more free flowing.
We'll make it as interactive as possible.
But there's
May I just-
some
May I
polls.
just say something? If you're on this call and you have not received a flyer to the workshop, if you email me, csuch@sonoraca.com, I will send you a flyer.
It's also,
Oh,
it's also on the website.
Oh, I looked, when did it go on? I didn't see it.
It's under public notices, shouldn't it be?
and it is free and it is open to the public.
Right.
And I guess I should say, I just did the math and maybe 2 months is a little premature, but
Yeah, I'm scaring a heart attack there.
yeah, but I am moving in the near future. Let's put it that way. Or
Do we have
That's a
to,
mathematical.
do we have to vote on whether or
depending on
not we'll
COVID.
let him go?
That's an option.
All right.
So we have on the agenda, the cultural side, the soliciting, the discussion of how to solicit opinions, and what was?
Poll.
And the
Polling
poll,
if we would continue.
okay.
And,
Just
and
curious.
please, when is the
I
next
think you're gonna get
meeting?
yeses other than me. I'm sorry.
The next meeting is the second Monday in April,
Okay.
We need to look at
After
that.
Did,
after the workshop,
we also mentioned earlier about
the
the
12th.
framework for the resolution. Did we want
Perfect.
to agendize that or?
Sure.
Thank you.
So, and on the 12th, we have a planning commission meeting, so we will have to be a hold steady till 5 o'clock.
It'll be a hard 5 o'clock.
Yeah, it'll be a hard 5 o'clock.
Okay. No more public comment. Thank you, everyone, and this meeting has come to an end.